gamers, all my Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero gamers. So I remember the other day when Rednew posted his opinion when he said that Zenless Zone Zero is a lot better than Wuthering Waves in terms of combat, and it got me thinking. I don't really see a lot of people comparing these two in terms of combat. Whenever you try to compare the two games, there's always people that say, oh, you can't really do that because one's an open world game and the other one's not. But we're not really talking about all that. You can't really use that excuse here because we're talking about the combat. We're talking about the fist fighting, bro. You ain't gonna hide that from me no more. Ricky, I caught you. Now it's time for me to compare the games. Now, in my opinion, I do think that these are both the best combat experience games when it comes to gacha games. You're not really going to get any better than Zenless Zone Zero and Wuthering Waves. And story-wise, obviously something else could beat it, like, I don't know, Nikkei. Nikkei is pretty much like the best story gacha game in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. Now, when we come to Wuthering Waves, the combat, it feels a little bit more slow and methodical, right? You're not really running all over the place. Your characters aren't going with these over-the-top animations, and you have a stamina that is actually limited in this game. Fighting, you have to pay attention to what you're doing. Basically, you have to be smarter when using your stamina bar, because if not, you're just gonna get caught with your pants down and you're gonna get your ass kicked. In my opinion, it feels a lot like Elden Ring or like the Dark Souls kind of games, which if you look at Renacita, it kind of makes sense. Renacita just seems like it's straight out of Dark Souls or Elden Ring, which is not a bad thing, because if you're gonna take inspiration from anybody, why would you not take inspiration from one of the most successful franchises ever? In my opinion, it's like, go for it, dude. I would too. Hey, I would too, is all I'm saying. You have to really pay attention to your forte as well. You gotta kind of manage your passives and your buffs and all that to get like the most optimal damage. You go into the late game and you can't really run over things. You can get all your buffs up and then you can run over things, that's for sure. I've seen some people do some insane damage and I definitely can't. I don't know why. In fact, I wish I knew why. I don't know if I'm just not min-maxing my echoes or what it is, but it's really obnoxious. I still can't 30 for 30 the end game, and I at this point I'm just blaming the game. I don't even know what to do. But I guess team comps really matter in the late game. You look up the most popular teams and you pretty much come up with the same teams every time. So I guess team comps are a big thing. I don't really know. In game's not for me for this game. It can be cinematic as well. It's not as over the top as Zenless Zone Zero, but this game is really pretty, and even the combat can be very cinematic. You just have to like pause it, or not even pause it. You just gotta put like a black bar and just walk up to Scar with the Chotaro face and do the parries and all that. I think it looks really, really cool. But a lot of these characters aren't as flashy as Zenless Zone Zero characters, as I said. You have some flashy ones, don't get me wrong. Carlotta looks really, really cool. I think Rochia, when she jumps around and says, does the Mamma Mia thing, I think it looks really, really cool. And of course, my girl looks cool, Chisha. I think she has a really cool animation, and I think my last favorite one is probably Sunhua. I really like Sunhua, looks really cool. But I think something that it does have that Zenless Zone Zero doesn't have is the echo system. I think the echo system, when you use it in echo to do the extra attack, it looks really cool, and it does add a little bit more in terms of like keeping your combos going, because your characters have a finite amount of animations and then they just stop and reset for a second. But if you use the echoes, you can kind of keep it going, especially if you have, I think it's Dreamless Nightmare, whatever. That one's really cool for, I use it on, what's her name? I use it on Camellia, and I like it. That looks really cool. But now I want to talk about Zenless Zone Zero. Zenless Zone Zero pretty much has somewhat of a same baseline combat system. You have differences here and there, and the one thing that is really different is the animations. The animations feel a lot faster. Like, this game feels so much faster than Wuthering Waves in terms of like how the combat works. If you think this game is not that fast, go fight Jane Doe's shadow. It is over the top, especially if you do it with Jane Doe. you can't even follow what's on your screen. It looks really, really cool. I think it looks sick. You know, it feels faster than Wuthering Waves, especially because there is no stamina when doing normal dodges. Now you have the team dodge where you switch to another character when the attack is incoming, but in terms of your character, your normal dodges, you can just pretty much dodge all over the place. The game won't really stop you. Now the game will definitely trap you in an infinite loop of attacks if you're not careful and you're just dodging around like an idiot, but it is kind of really nice to have an unlimited stamina bar. You know, you feel like you're getting punished less. You know, I like it. I don't get punished for my bad decisions, and I make a lot of those, so you know, it is what it is. Now, with the new ult system, I think it opens up a lot more to your team comp and your resource management. You know, I think if this wasn't added, I think Wuthering Waves definitely had a lot more on top of Zenless Zone Zero. But because of this, you can pretty much just run around and use your ult however you want, you know. Instead of being a more focused on a hyper carry character, you can have like sub DPSs and have them have your own ults and then layer them on top of your own ults, especially if you use Anomaly and you're trying to get Disorder, which is what I do. I you know, if you use, say, like Piper with Mayabi, you can get a lot more Disorder off, and it feels a lot better. It doesn't feel like you're wasting your time switching over to Piper or, you know, switching your characters around and having their ults go off. You know, you could actually get, you know, to use, and I think this is actually really, really important too, is you can actually use someone like Astra Yao's ult who heals your characters and all that, instead of being like, oh no, I have to get this extra damage off, let me use Mayabi's ult. But speaking about Mayabi, I do think that a lot of these games can be soloed by your most broken character. So Zenless Zone Zero, if you just have Mayabi, you could pretty much just farm the entirety of the game by herself. You know, it feels really funny, but you know, she's just that strong of a character. Or maybe it's just Mayabi. Maybe she's just that broken of a character. Who knows? But overall, I think both of these games have pretty much what I would call the peak of combat in terms of gacha games. Now, the real question is, which one is better? In my opinion, and I don't do this lightly because this is how close and how good both of these games are in terms of combat. I do think that your opinion is gonna vary, and I think it really is up to the individual person, because the differences in these combat games is very, very not even minute, but it's just, it feels like the differences are up to personal preference. Do you want a game that is more slow and methodical, a lot more cinematic, or do you want a game that is kicking into overdrive? You know, all your characters are running around and your characters are just doing these over the top things that just look really, really cool. So I will say, for me personally, I like Zenless Zone Zero. It's my favorite game in terms of combat. Wuthering Waves, you know, and the more I play it, the more upset I get of it. You know, I can't really do the end game. Hey, it is what it is. But I do think that this, who is better, is actually subjective. You know, I wouldn't say this for like Genshin Impact versus Wuthering Waves. You know, Wuthering Waves pretty much blows it out of the water without a question. But this one, these two, pretty much they're pretty much head to head in terms of how good they are in combat. Let me know if you agree. In terms of which one's better, I think it's subjective. Let me know if you guys also think so. Comment, like, subscribe, and I will catch you gamers in the next one.
Bring me down, I can't over nightmares. Oh, we can tame the darkness. If you can see